Well, as I mentioned, of course, Christian, there's plenty of entertaining football this weekend, but the topic of VAR has been brought up again. The red card to Ivan Vujicic, challenging for the ball in the air with Joe Lolly. He clips him on the foot. There is no doubt about that, but very low force. It was adjudged a yellow card and overturned to a red through VAR. Christian, we know today the FA have accepted MacArthur's obvious error application, so the suspension against Vujicic has been rescinded. Football Australia head of referees Nathan Majules saying the intervention by the VAR was unnecessary. I think that's a sentiment that has been felt many times over by football fans in this country and around the world.
Yeah, it was 100% the right call. You saw, when you logged onto social media, straight after the decision was made, everyone was up in arms saying, how can the referee make this decision? Both feet are basically, equal level, in the air. How can you give that as a straight red card? Maybe a yellow card at worst, like what Simon Hill and Daniel McBrien were saying in the commentary. But yeah, it just wasn't a straight red. And it just goes back to the VAR instance where we're seeing just referees unable to make sort of these common sense calls that are, swaying results of matches. Like if MacArthur, we'll get onto it in a bit, but they were able to see out the 3 points with, 9 men. But at the same time, you've got to just sort of question what these people are doing in the VAR room, because they've obviously got the technology with them. It's not a case of the technology breaking down. It's more so about reading the game and having that real sense of understanding and the feel for it. So I think that's the part where we're just at a bit of a crossroads.
Yes, and look, refereeing in its best form is this kind of forlorn chase of perfection that you'll never ever achieve. And Paletti, we try to eliminate some of the grey area with technology, but when there are humans behind it, inevitably mistakes will happen. But it goes beyond that, and it feels like, any football fan will agree that the VAR process itself is broken. I think we can agree that if it was used the right way, the technology can be a good thing for football, but it's not being used the right way, and we don't have all the magical solutions, but it's clear that the one we have right now is not fit for purpose.
I mean, it's this idea of striving for perfection, right? To get every single call right, and it's what fans want, it's what players want, it basically those who run the game as well want. Everyone wants the correct call to be made all the time, but you have humans running this. The reality is mistakes are going to be made, and this striving for perfection, is only amplifying this. I mean, it was. I'll go back to the quote from Nathan McGill. According to the laws of the game, the challenge occurred with normal playing intensity and speed as both players were engaging in a typical motion to contest the ball. Although the contact was made at the ankle/lower shin, it was brief and occurred with the leg raised, which mitigates the severity of the force used. That's a fair interpretation of what occurred. What should probably tell you is the fact that you've got Joe Lolly saying that he was telling the referee that's not a red card. Basically don't do it. I'm paraphrasing there because I don't think we know exactly what he said in the moment, but it was raised by, Milo Strayovsky in the post-game press conference that, that's what Lolly said. That incident happened directly in front of the MacArthur bench. Everyone you talked to thought it was a yellow card. The only two people who seemed to think it was a red card were Lara Lee in the VAR room, and Daniel Elder. Yeah, it's just baffling that MacArthur could consider themselves very lucky the fact that they escaped that game with 3 points, because if Joe Lolly wasn't offside, and we'll talk about the game a little bit later, if Joe Lolly's not offside, and they only get a point, like that locks Sydney into a home final, which is where MacArthur would probably have to go play away to. And now, depending on what happens this weekend, they could very well be hosting Sydney instead of having to play away from home. I know both teams are in the same city, but that playing at home versus playing away is the atmosphere makes all the difference come finals time. And I think MacArthur can consider themselves very lucky that they escaped with 3 points.
Look, I said this online right after the incident, and I don't actually blame the referees, Daniel Elder and Lara Lee, and the VAR as well. I think the referees are products of their environment. And if you look at the rule book hard enough, you can find a clause in there that will give you a reason to give that a red card. It is the process here that it's broken, and people can take cheap shots at referees for however long they want, right? But it is the system that they're being forced to officiate in that is the core problem here. And the irony of this whole thing, Christian, is that the VAR is supposed to have more time to adjudicate these decisions, and we're still not happy with it. Then we go to the MRP, who have 24, 48 hours to look over all these decisions. They've rescinded the red card for Vujitsa. And then the comparison has immediately been drawn to Patrick Wood back in round 14. His red card that he received in the Big Blue against the Melbourne Victory is an extremely similar incident of which FA did not rescind a red card. The only slight difference I make out is that Pat Woods had potentially slightly more force, and that's really grasping at straws there as well. Slightly more force. Apart from that, the incidents are relatively similar. One gets let off, one doesn't, Christian, and they've had days to look at these incidents, not just minutes like the VAR.
Yeah, I mean, what you said at the start, you can't blame the referees, but at the same time, obviously this decision has been overturned, so there must be something to say in that. If the ref's seen that, surely either the ref or the people in the VAR room are thinking to themselves, okay, this isn't a red card offence. So the fact that the decision was upheld and overturned, I mean, it sort of speaks volume as to sort of there's so many great areas in football, and that's where I want to get to my next point, because there's obviously so many areas in the game where you can debate for days whether this is a handball or a high boot, if a tackle's sufficient of a red card, which is sort of like why I love the game more as it was originally without this technology intervention, because we've got to remember that the goal line technology was sort of brought into play first, for obviously a clear and obvious, is it over the line, is it not? And then that's obviously, for Europe and stuff, which came into it. Now A-League's adopted the VAR system, but it's just been used in a way which is sort of nitpicking every single little slight decision, that it's sort of, just generating this stop-start sort of scenario, which surely for fans and the neutrals, watching at home and at the stadium, it's not a good experience waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to wait for an outcome. So, I mean, you can look at it both ways. I think the referees, at the end of the day, they need to have more feel for the game, and that's where you sort of need ex-professionals who have been in that scenario before on the pitch to have a say in these decisions. I know it's easier said than done to get those people in the jobs, but we're just going to be having these same conversations over and over again.
Yeah, look, Christian, I'll be honest, I don't buy the whole ex-footballers in the VAR booth kind of argument. I think referees, if they're good enough to a level, should get it. But I also agree that those kinds of decisions shouldn't be made from the VAR room. And Paletti, before I throw to you about the Patrick Wood comparison as well, let me throw an alternate theory out there for VAR. And I'm sure this has holes that I haven't thought of yet. But the phrase clear and obvious clearly isn't working. We're not getting the results that we want out of that. I would suggest something like important matters of fact, things that are clear. And again, I've just used the word clear in a different context, so there's levels of confusion here. But matters of fact, like, was it a foul inside the box or outside the box? Did it hit a hand? Was the player offside? These things that potentially get missed, these big blunders that we talk about, which is why the system was introduced in the first place. Things that you can obviously, and again, the terminology gets all crossed over, but things that are just clear as day to see.
It's black or it's white is essentially what you're saying.
Black
and
or white
decisions.
things, and leave every single subjective, contextual decision to the referee on the field.
I don't disagree. I think, I think the system definitely has merits, and I think, in that statement, again from the FA about the Vujitsa decision, at the end of the season, the Football Australia Referees Department will conduct a detailed review of the A-League match officials team. The review will involve club football directors, owners, match officials, the APL, and Professional Footballers Australia. The goal is to ensure continued collaboration to support the A-Leagues within the broader football ecosystem. ahead of the 24-25 season. And I think as part of that review, and the problem is I'm not sure how much Football Australia and the referees department can tinker with VAR itself, or if that comes from, say, IFAB and FIFA
Not much.
above
They
them.
can barely touch it.
Like that's my point, is that you can't really change it. We either have VAR or we don't. And like, look, I'd very much love for these, decisions to be broadcast live. Like what we have in, the AFL, like what we have in the NRL, in rugby union, where you can hear very clearly the process that's being gone through by the video review, and we can hear the logic and reasoning in real time. IFAB seems to not want that. I remember a situation, I want to say it was Copa America, where the sideline microphones by the TV broadcaster were actually picking up what was being said at the monitor for a VAR review, and someone's picked up on that, and they've been told, turn those microphones down. This is not allowed to be broadcast, and they've had to turn it down. But everyone's calling for that. That's what we want. And I think to go to the Patrick Wood comparison, for me, I think the force definitely comes into it. But for me, I also think it's wear on the body. If I'm remembering the incident correctly, it was studs up to the stomach. There really isn't any.
No, it was foot to foot.
Oh, it was foot to foot, was it?
It's like exactly the same. Yeah.
Okay, then in which case, I forget what I've just said. I literally, for some reason, I thought it was foot to stomach. I must be confusing my VAR incidents.
Yeah, look, it's not going anywhere. Mainly because that's what FIFA want. It seems. Christian, have you got any ideas you want to throw out there
really
as to how we
specific
could
ideas,
improve
just
it?
more what you said. Like, I do agree with you in that. You've just got to go with the clear-cut decisions, the black and white ones. Because if you just, like I said before, if you're nitpicking these little decisions here and there, you might as well not have VAR in the first place. Because, like Paletti mentioned before, it's human error. At the end of the day, humans are running it. It's not AI or technology. Yeah, it's human beings. So, I mean, yeah, it's got to be black or white, or don't bother.
And there's a whole range of other procedural issues as well, like the second red card in that game to Tommy Smith. I think we can all agree that was a red card, but why does Daniel Elder have to spend 3 or 4 minutes talking to his assistant to decide on a yellow and then immediately walk off to go to the screen for the red card? So, look, there's issues all over the place.
I thought that one was a little bit weird. Like, I understand needing... Like I understand that in the current system, the referee needs to come to the decision in their own time, which is what happened. But obviously, Lara Lee and the VAR has looked at this within, and I don't know how long it's taken her to come to a decision, but it's certainly less than 3 or 4 minutes to be like, hang on, there's been forceful contact made here. You need to come look at this. Like, at that point, as you said, do we really need to spend 3 or 4 minutes of Elder fiddling around with the assistant referee when Lara can just, come in and be like, hey, there's contact with I think there's reason for you to come over and see if this is a red card. But that being said, we also want the referees to come to a decision in their own time. Like, are any of us really complaining today if, and I say us as in, soccer Twitter, fans, pundits alike, are we all complaining today if that's left as a yellow card and that's it? Probably not. I don't think.
I think yes.
But then the calls are going to be, like, if we're letting the referee do their own thing, then the calls are going to be, well, this is the call they've gotten wrong. This is why we need VAR to fix it. And we just go in an endless circle of should we have it or should we not? And, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I take your point. I just... yeah, no, it's a big sigh for me.